In occult lore, magic, left-hand path, Luciferianism, or Satanism, no other symbol or representation of the adversary in modern times is more mysterious to most than the Sabbatic goat or Baphomet. I'm going to discuss the origins and history and modern interpretation from a Luciferian standpoint of Baphomet. If you read Transcendental Magic by Levi, there is an image and a description of something called the Sabbatic goat. You'll know the Sabbatic goat from the symbolism, and all of which has a much deeper and more ancient interpretation and origin than you may first realize. Levi describes Baphomet, Sabbatic goat, as the Baphomet of Mendes, and that would be associated with Egypt, a pantheistic and magical figure of the absolute. The torch placed between the two horns represents the equilibrating intelligence of the triad. The goat's head, which is synthetic, unites some of the characteristics of the dog, bull, and ass, represents the exclusive responsibility of matter and expiation of bodily sins in the body. The hands are human to represent the sanctity of labor. They make the sign of esotericism above and below to impress mystery to initiates. They point to two lunar crescents, the upper being white and the lower black, and explain the correspondences of good and evil, mercy and justice. The lower part of the body is veiled, portraying the mysteries of the universal generation. The belly of the goat is scaled and should be colored green, the semicircle in blue. Plumage reaching to the breast should be of various hues. The goat has female breasts, and thus is the only human characteristics are those of maternity and toil, and a sign of redemption. On the forehead, between the horns, beneath the torch, is a sign of the microcosm, or the pentagram, with one point in the ascendant, symbol of human intelligence, which placed thus below the torch marks the flame of the ladder as the image of divine revelation. This pantheistic figure should be seated on a cube, etc. The problem with the symbolism of Baphomet from Levi is that he allows the kind of Catholic training and a Judeo-Kabbalistic approach to mention sins and mention good and evil. So right there you've corrupted the entire essence and origin of what would become Baphomet. Going back in Egyptian history, there was no Baphomet per se. There were composite, starting with the times of Ptolemy and Alexander the Great. There was composite gods that started to develop, and they represented different aspects of culture and goals, much as we do in magic today with some of the demonic imagery or so forth. One was Serapis. This god was a composite of several: Zeus, Osiris, Hades, kind of a mix to represent health, healing, knowledge, and wisdom. The goat of Mendes would refer back to the ram of the son of Ammon, and that was the supreme conquering deity, the one who establishes order, Ammon, later Ammon-Ra. The early, not only in the ancient Near East, but also with the Macedonian period, which heralded in the Roman period, which had the explosion of Christianity, and in Hellenism, the imagery of the horns are very significant in pre-Christian cultures because they represent several things: divine or supernatural spiritual power, so like an embodiment from a specific deific mask or god. Horns also represent wisdom, conquering, and mastery. Seleucus Nicator, the founder of the Seleucid Empire in the ancient Near East, is depicted in several coins as his daemon or deified image, associating him with Dionysus, the conqueror, who has bull horns and various other animal attributes, including panther. The early images of horns, Alexander the Great was identified by his various priesthoods as the son of Zeus Ammon. Zeus Ammon is the associated with Ammon, the ram of the sun. Zeus Ammon, if you look at various images of Alexander the Great and his successors, have the horns. Now, Alexander had the horns of the ram. The Persians called him Dual Qarnayn, which is the two-horned one, and they associated him as an kind of agent of Ahriman, while more in the West he was a liberator. So the two-horned one represents in early antiquity divine manifestation, kind of God manifest, the concept of ruling, conquering power within the possibility of an individual leading them. So you had that aspect of wisdom already with the horns. So Baphomet's horns have a long history of wisdom and knowledge and the power to assert your dominance in situations. Referring to the Qliphoth, around the 12th century AD in early medieval period, the Hebrew Kabbalists have an interesting interpretation which is utilized in the kind of symbolism in the Luciferian witchcraft tradition, and that is their manifestation of the adversary and how the symbol of Baphomet comes out of that. So as you'll know with some of my grimoires, specifically like Luciferian witchcraft and Bible the Adversary, things like that, Baphomet has some symbolic origin with an aspect called Leviathan. If you look at the symbol of Baphomet, it's all there, the infernal union. You have Leviathan, the encircling one, who brings together Samael and Lilith. In that union, they beget the one called Sheol, or the beast. The beast is Baphomet. The head of Baphomet is the head of wisdom in later witchcraft tradition. The name Baphomet is of the probably Muslim period and around the time of the Crusades and after. There were specifically Arabic tribes that carried their pagan traditions, their non-Muslim traditions, into the new Muslim period. And one of those goes back to what we called with Alexander the Great, the two-horned one. But there's a name in Arabic, a word, a corruption of a word, Abu Hamat. And it's pronounced roughly in more Spanish, something like Buf Hayamat. And the word means father of understanding, father of wisdom. In Arabic, specifically, and a lot of this is written about by Idris Shah, who's a Sufi author and quite an accomplished historian in the area and magician. In Arabic, father is taken to mean source, seed of. Okay, and in Sufi terminology, Ras al-Fahamat is the head of knowledge. And Shaw referred to the meaning of mentation of man after ongoing refinement, the transmuted consciousness. So there's a Arabic root word, FHM, and that means knowledge, understanding. And it also has an association with black. So the Baphomet is the symbol of the complete or ascended man. Now, you take out the Judeo-Christian and Muslim or Islamic Sufi context, you have the pre-Christian religions, and that union of Samael and Lilith, which are in Kabbalah, all of the adversaries in the Qliphoth are the pre-Christian deific mask and gods. So Baphomet is the union of Samael and Lilith, not opposites in the sense of two extremes, but they bring two elements together: the material, the carnal, the determined, the focused, and then Lilith, the instinct, the fiery spirit. The two together create the Baphomet symbol, the head of the beast, the two-horned one with the torch of wisdom, a symbol of Hecate Phosphoros, and Lucifer, the bringer of light. Very important symbolism, because Baphomet, in that sense, represents the black adept, you and I, whoever is going through the process of continual initiation. That is Baphomet. It's a symbol of the self, but upon a path of initiation, which means balance. And this is the Luciferian witchcraft thing, and there's another avenue to that tradition, which comes from earlier English witchcraft lore, which I was initiated through. We see that Baphomet as the symbol of the union, the infernal union, is the daemon, contacting and achieving that instinctual communion with your daemon, your true will, because it shapes the fiery and the primordial, the instincts that drive us. It uses it in a meaningful way. So that's the symbol of Baphomet. In that sense, the Templars were said to have associations with symbol of Baphomet, and they could have been involved in mystical rites from the Near East medieval period. It was probably an offshoot of Christianity or Sufi initiatory avenues, if that's even accurate with them. The witch's Sabbath comes from the Arabic and the Moors in the sense of entering the circle of the type of forbidden knowledge that had been pushed out by those monotheistic religions at that time. Now, going to Samael Lilith, the infernal union, Baphomet is also the same as the Hebraic first symbol of the adversary in flesh, being Cain. Cain is the offspring of Samael and Eve, or Lilith in some traditions. And being the son of Samael, he's called the first murderer and essentially a Satanist. He's kind of his daughters and the tribes, according to the mythology of the Hebrews, were cohabiting with the Watchers, the Grigori, the fallen angels who begot the giants. So, as an adversarial light, the symbol of the Nephilim, even though it's pre-Christian origin and pre-Judaic, is a symbol of the head of wisdom. You're seeking knowledge, but you're using it and shaping the world as your own God. In the writings of Aleister Crowley, we see that he was essentially at the beginning of the emerging out of Judeo-Christian thought, and his foundation in Thelema of Baphomet. In magic, there is a reference, an actual indication of where Crowley wanted to really take the ideology of Thelema and because of the time and the way he was raised and all the cultural things going on, it was very hard for him to think outside of the dualistic, monotheistic idea. But this is definitely one of the modern kind of seeds for Luciferianism as I've written and worked with it. The quote from Crowley is, "The devil is historically the god of any people that one personally dislikes." Now, that statement right there is totally incorrect, because he's writing it or saying that as if we're of a Hebrew tribe that worships Yahweh. Well, that's a very small number of and not everyone thinks that way. The ancient Near East didn't look at any foreign people as necessarily devils incarnate. But let's go on to say this has led so much confusion within the thought that the beast, 666, has preferred to let names stand as they are, and to proclaim simply that I was. The solar phallic hermetic Lucifer is his own holy guardian angel. And the devil, Satan or Hadit, of our particular unit of the star universe. The serpent, Satan, is not the enemy of man, but he who made the gods of our race, knowing good and evil, he bade know thyself, and taught initiation. He is the devil of the Book of Thoth, and his emblem is Baphomet. The androgyne who has the hieroglyphic of arcane perfection. Very important. Luciferianism and the grimoires that I published over the years emerged from my almost painful daily initiatory workings with the Holy Guardian Angel, or the Liber Samek by Crowley. John Parsons' writings really inspired me to go towards where I felt, which was towards the image of this thing called Lucifer, or the adversary, and the current really opened up to me. So what Crowley indicated as Baphomet, really it's that type of work that was the seed for what was to come in the Luciferian ideology. So we see Baphomet, with all the symbolism associated with it, is the image of the Black Adept, the continual magus, the one who's going forward. In the tradition of Luciferian witchcraft with Cain as Baphomet, you see still the two-horned one, but he's carrying the hammer of Tubal-Cain, which is creating weapons or creating self-excellence. The forge represents our spirit within the black flame, developing that black flame, and the black flame is directly associated with the daemon and how that burns. That's what the torch leads us to. So very important in that aspect. And Cain as being the isolate one, the adversary, is very much in line with the Baphometic works as we go forward. One of the things that people will see in the future and forthcoming grimoires and studies that I'm putting forth is defining that Baphomet is an excellent model to work with as far as initiation. However, we want to start going towards the individual, those who are able to create an image, what they visualize as a person, if it was a person, or with composite parts, their daemon. And the daemon can actually, as a Baphometic aspect, take on different attributes depending on your workings, like cult epithets or descriptions of what that daemon represents. I'm going to go into that in the future more in depth, but the work with the daemon, the true will, is essential, and that's what Baphomet represents. It's not a devil that people stand around and worship. I couldn't even understand the idea of worshiping something outside of myself. I don't worship me as a person. I exalt the daemon and I feed my daemon. So there's a difference there. It's not monotheistic Judeo-Christian supplication. Totally different. Thank you for watching this.